Today we're here to talk about physical conflict. You may ask, why would a channel devoted to psychological things or parapsychological ones talk about physical conflict? It's because physical conflict also very much has to do with what's happening in the mind. And when we do think about these things, usually we don't think correctly. There's a number of principles involved. There's many factors which can change the calculus on what I'm about to talk about. Nevertheless, the principles remain true. The first one, is it better to increase strengths or decrease weaknesses in front of some kind of contest? Increasing one's strength allows you to overpower other people's weaknesses. Weaknesses, you can have many of them, and you may not even be aware of them all. There was a meanest man contest many years ago, maybe 20, in Cincinnati, where the winner used something martial artists will recognize, a back pivot kick. He used it over and over. He was very good at it. He used it against opponents which were bigger and stronger, smaller and faster, used a variety of different martial arts, and ended up winning. It wasn't the only technique he used, but it was his main weapon. It was very interesting to note. Second principle, is attack stronger or is defend stronger? We would like defend to be stronger. However, when you examine the matter, you can see a few things that are important to note. The attacker gets to choose where to attack. He also chooses when. The initiative is in his control. The defender might successfully defend many times, but if he's not successful once, the game is over. Attack appears to be stronger than defend, generally. Number 3, are equivalent weapons just as good as the weapons they are equivalent to? This question arises particularly when countries produce a weapon that is equivalent to an opponent's weaponry, but some technological superiority purportedly makes the device cheaper, more easily managed, and therefore equivalent, just as good. In the first place, military secrets are secrets that are the quickest to disappear. And it should always be doubted when someone makes a claim of superiority, making up for some difference. In the second place, even if this assertion is the truth, it's still a formula for failure. Why? Because wars are not won with equivalent weapons. They are won with superior ones. Let's have a look at some particulars now. First, does the stronger opponent always win? There's many factors that go into a contest: agility, strength, endurance, toughness, and practice and capability. These are all factors that matter. But there's also some historical examples where a fight, so to speak, is won without having to actually have a fight. Consider the gray wolf. We have many of them alive today. But 6,000 years ago and earlier, there was a creature called a dire wolf. By all accounts, it was heavier, more robust, stronger. In a contest between the two, we probably would expect the dire wolf to be the stronger and to win. However, as the climate changed and its food sources, which were much larger and slower, started to disappear, the gray wolf, being more lithe and faster, still had game, whereas the dire wolf began to decrease in numbers until they no longer existed. So for the physically inferior, they still exist, and the physically superior is extinct. Particular number 2, home invasion. People like to say that if someone breaks into their home, they'll grab a shotgun and cock it so that the invader will hear that someone is awake and armed. If the person is there to rob, which in many cases is probably going to be why they're there, most likely they will realize the game is up and flee. But we should understand that robbery isn't the only reason someone might break into a house. Maybe they're after somebody, man or woman. If they are, by doing the aforesaid, you just told them who's there and probably approximately where you are. Again, this is just something to think about. The third particular has to do with firearms. Is knockdown a real thing? If the bullet is bigger and slower, it tends to have more physical impact than the smaller, faster bullet will have, even if the foot-pounds of energy is approximately the same. If these two weapons were fired at a hard plate of steel, the impact could be measured at usually about the same, somewhere 350 to 600 foot-pounds. However, against a target that is not that hard, say a living thing, the faster bullet, number one, it's inside the target for a much shorter period of time. And number two, the area that is transmitting the energy of the shot also is smaller. The bigger bullet with a larger area transmits more of its power to the target, and being slower stays inside of it longer to transmit that energy for a longer period of time. So yes, some bullets, some guns do have greater knockdown than others. This is not to say that they are better necessarily. There is a theoretical distance at which a person with a 9mm gun could shoot a person with a 45mm gun, but the one with the 45 could not even reach the one with the 9mm. This is because a slower bullet is affected by gravity more quickly, meaning it just hasn't gone as far by the time it has fallen. Now to the critical matter. Machiavelli said there's two types of combat. One is with laws, which is of civilized people, and the other is with force, which is the way of beasts. The problem is that the laws attempt to regulate the use of this force in society. Exactly how does one switch between one and the other when confronted? Let's consider soldiers and policemen. The soldier doesn't have this to worry about. He's trained what to do, and he's placed in a position where he knows to go do it. Now, policemen, on the other hand, try to maintain order, and they do so by showing you that an element of the law is seeing what you're doing. In many cases in a civilized society, this works out very well, but many policemen were soldiers, and they know perfectly well the risk they're placing themselves at, because all that has to happen is someone not care about the law to attack the policeman, and generally he will not attack first. Think about spiders. Many people are afraid of them. Why? It's because of their intent. There's no laws regarding how a spider does. Spiders kill. It's just what they do, and that is frightening. Even though the truth is, for humans, they're largely inoffensive creatures. Another example is for the martial artists out there. Consider how it feels when you're practice fighting. You're learning skills, practicing them, trying to score hits, and learn. Generally speaking, there's no fear involved. It's practice. Now consider someone, even someone very accomplished, being confronted by someone on the street. Most of the time, you'll still experience the anxiety and shock of the confrontation. Again, why is this? Because there is a crossroads. There's a critical something that's happening at this contact between law and force. The critical versus subcritical problem can be illustrated with something I saw many years ago at Ohio State. A friend of mine and I were walking north on High Street near the university campus. On the same side of the street was a young female that was probably going home after closing her work. As we passed, she tried to closely hug the wall get past this friend of mine. He stopped and said, "What is that?" "Pepper spray?" "Let me see it." Well, she tossed it to him, and he looked at it and tossed it back to her, and everyone went on their way. It's a good thing that there was no actual negative intent there. Apparently, she was frightened of him, and in an effort to avoid escalation, she actually gave up the one thing that could have protected her. This is where the rubber meets the road. The critical versus subcritical period. When do you escalate? She was probably afraid by not complying with his request, he might become physical, which was more frightening than actually having a weapon to deal with it. Training is something that is harped on by all bodies, soldiers, police, martial artists, and of course it's very important, but it rarely addresses this critical versus subcritical tension. This is something for you to think about, and you should think about it before it ever happens. With that, have a good evening and pleasant dreams.